Hello. So for those who don't realise, a portion of my book takes place in London, and in the book it's known as the Stinking City. Within my book, I actually did a series of illustrations to show some of those places. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a video just to kind of point out where those places are. In this section, it talks about the Stinking City, and here are some pigeons. They're called Balderboa in the book. But over here we have various locations that actually exist. I am here in Highgate Wood, which is where I did a lot of kind of coming up with ideas for this book, Seek the Throat from Which We Sing. And today I'm going to go to some of the locations that inspired various
Vulpes wended their way back towards the city. They took paths that were once occupied by train tracks, now reclaimed under the watch of the woodland. They loped over fences and cut new trails to aid their journey. Upon the highest point of the land hung the edifice of a once proud music hall. It overlooked the city which bowed with faint entreaty, the voices of the many thousands of guests who had once graced its opulent bowels, forever silent. Its foundation stood on old stone, the peak of the elevation chiselled flat a century or more before, yet the underpinning had not penetrated deep into the rock, within which dwelt old eyes. Beneath the earth was riven with cavities controlled by subterranean occupants who held to immemorial deed. The Vulpes did not accept those who lay claim above. They toiled in the dark and had done so for millennia, surreptitiously holding court over the city, making decrees to refute the terrible hand of the wrath, honed armour of glass and metal and vowed revenge. For this particular earth had sheltered clans of differing creeds long before the use of brick and mortar. Then the sickness came, and dark prayers seemed to have been answered. Wide green terraces tapered to the music hall atop its peak. This is Alexandra Palace, and when I was writing my book, I would walk from Highgate Wood. There's like a disused railway line path that comes all the way up to Alexandra Palace, and this is actually where the city of Ormagol, which is the Vulpes capital, is below the music hall. But also the final battle of the whole book takes place on this elevation up to the music hall.
This is Hampstead Heath, and there's actually a sign here on Hampstead Heath where there is a picture of the skyline of London.
Honor and Angwin found themselves in the hills to the north, far beyond the comfort of known lands. Here the incline offered Honor a view of the entire expanse of the stinking city. Angwin perched upon a raised sign which displayed a map of the skyline. He traced the embossed letters with his claws. This place was enjoyed by the wrath, he said as she cleaned herself. The words tell me that each of these great stones, he gestured at the buildings, each have names. They name their dwellings, she was surprised. Much like we do. I did not know they were so sentimental. Angwin laughed. The more I learn of them, the more complicated I find it to place my hatred. Explain, she said. They wielded their strength with all the maturity of a child, yet they made amazing things.
Over here is a bird enclosure in Clissold Park, which is in northeast London, which is actually not too far away from here, where I am now in Dalston. And this is called the Cruel, and this is where the Morwi, or cats, keep the birds that they capture for sacrifice. So I'm in Clissold Park, and here is the aviary in Clissold Park, which takes place in my book. It's called The Cruel in the book, and I'm just going to do a little reading of that scene. Rune traced the four corners of the strange place. He was enclosed. The cold concrete slabs sunk into a slurry of mud and feces. Flat white objects stacked with rotting seed were pitched in fouled pond. The waft of urine and decay was rife. He looked up at a lattice of branches that had been strung from the ceiling. Each was crowded with more lowly characters, each and every one focused on him. The small feathered, pointed with tattered wing had a nesting box amongst a plethora of haphazard dwellings. He urged Rune into flight, which proved sluggish and painful. He manoeuvred with difficulty toward a small round opening. Once inside, his companion quickly covered the entrance with bedding material. A little light still filtered through. How did you find yourself in such a place? The tiny shaking feather darted his head robotically. It made Rune nervous. He looked around him, collections of pebbles and seeds. He felt a palpable sadness in him. The little feathered's light grew dim. Rune collapsed. These are some of the places in the story that are actual real places in London.